Yeah, let's have some fun. It's a good Thursday, one and all. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, and today's episode is brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. I'm Marc Malusis, Matt Citak alongside with you, coming to you from the Giants podcast studio, presented to you by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. The phone number to call, of course, is 201-939-4513. That's 201-939-4513. Last edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live before the third and final preseason game is the Giants take on the Jets in the annual, people like to phrase it, the Snoopy Bowl tomorrow night out at MetLife Stadium, 7:30 kickoff, Matt. And we were talking a little bit off air. It's been interesting, lengthy as it is with training camps, and I understand you have done a tremendous job covering it from pillar to post. Everybody, John and all of us here in the Giants building. But West Virginia, Miami, here at East Rutherford. A lot of different storylines to analyze and get into, and tomorrow night, the crescendo in terms of preseason games where you get the third and final one, this time against the Jets.
Yeah, look, I mean, we'll see, who exactly is out there playing. Coach Harbaugh really did not shed too much light.
Clarity
into who might suit up. He was teed up in a question, I believe it was yesterday, saying, wouldn't it be valuable for your players, your starters, to get some reps in before the season? And he goes, yeah, it would, And then the reporter was like, otherwise it'd be a full month between reps. And he goes, that's a good point. Yeah. And then the next question was, well, what about, trying to protect guys from injury? And he goes, that's a great point as well. That's exactly what we're weighing back and forth. So, yeah, we don't really know.
Those are the conversations that are happening inside the room.
Exactly. So we don't really know which way they're leaning. Maybe we see some starters and not others. Maybe we see everyone. Maybe we don't see anyone. But either way, excited to see, one more, I guess, I don't want to call it, let's say just preseason football. One more preseason football game that doesn't truly matter towards the season, the record, but just further prep, because we're only a couple of weeks away from that week 1 game against the Cowboys. It's creeping up pretty quickly.
Right, and it's all part of the process to get you set for what is regular season football. And obviously, it's been a different style of camp, a little bit more physical. Harbaugh year number 1, you expected that based on everything that he did down in Baltimore with the Ravens, and the expectations of the Giants coming into the season is to take a step forward with Coach Harbaugh and this coaching staff, and obviously with a quarterback in Jackson Dart going into year number 2, and with the ability to get after the quarterback defensively, a new defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson, obviously Nagy coming over, and Matt Nagy coming over from the Kansas City Chiefs to run and call the plays, and the install of a new offense, and what we've seen flashes from guys like Malachi Fields, the continued storyline with Malik Neighbors, and obviously the ability to go out there and run the football. So, I mean, it's been, this is all part of the process, right? So you go through the entire offseason after the announcement that John Harbaugh was the head coach, the putting together of the staff and all the, the OTAs and the rookie mini camps, and then you get training camp going, and then the trip down to West Virginia, and then you get preseason game number 1, the trip down to Miami, preseason game number 2, and now we get the third and final one tomorrow night, and Blink of an eye will be getting set to kind of strap it on for real, Matt. Not you and I. Nobody wants to watch us play football, but the guys on the football field and on the team and this coaching staff, where ultimately you are decided. And Wade measured each and every week, and every coach and every player knows that when the Giants entertain the Dallas Cowboys and what should be an unbelievable atmosphere out at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's tomorrow night is a night game, of course.
No doubt.
Under the lights of MetLife Stadium. So it'll be a nice little taste of what week 1 is going to actually be like against the Cowboys, where obviously not only will the lights be on at MetLife Stadium, but the whole country will be watching, because it'll be Sunday Night Football, nationally televised game. I know it's been a minute since the Giants and Cowboys faced off week 1 on Sunday Night Football, but I cannot wait for that game.
No
Count
doubt.
down the days.
201-939-4513. Marc and Matt with you here on this Thursday edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. All right, Matt, what are you looking for? We don't really have, as you went through it, and as Coach Harbaugh met with the media, yesterday, as far as the, what to expect tomorrow night, who's playing, who's not. But what are you looking forward to? And instead of getting into the conversation of whether or not starters should start, who should play, who shouldn't, and when you're looking at position battles, what are you looking at tomorrow night And what should Giant fans keep an eye on as the Giants and the Jets play preseason game number 3?
Yeah, well, for starters, we talk about, obviously, Sunday is the deadline to reduce the rosters to 53 players. It is the initial 53-man roster. Coach Harbaugh noted earlier in the week, most of the roster is pretty much set. But there are still a few spots up for grabs. He reiterated that yesterday. There are still spots 100% up for grabs, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range, it sounds like, based on what Coach Harbaugh said earlier in the week. But I'm looking for the big competition battles that we've kind of been watching all summer. This is the final chance for some of those guys to really showcase to the coaching staff what they can do. I'm talking about at the wide receiver position, where following the injury to Calvin Austin, I feel like it's even kind of more up for grabs now with who might make it, the bottom of the depth chart type of guys. Same goes for the battle at cornerback. There are a lot of guys that have been playing well all summer. We don't know, as we said, we don't know if the starters are going to play, but there's still starting spots at the cornerback position seemingly up for grabs, not to mention the depth spots further down the depth chart. So those are the two positions which, honestly, I've been most intrigued about watching all summer. But again, tomorrow night will be the last chance for those guys to really showcase what they can do for the coaching staff in a game setting. And then after that, it's just the depth on the O-line. Obviously, over the last 8 days now, there have been 2 trades.
2 trades.
Which you would have told me the Giants would have so much depth on the O-line that they'd be able to trade 2 players before cut down day for future draft picks. It wasn't too long ago where I would have thought that's absolutely crazy to say that, but here we are.
Well, it's refreshing. I mean, because,
refreshing.
It was, the offensive line, Matt, has been too much of a talking point since the Giants last won their Super Bowl in 2011. And it's been a lot of conversation. Unfortunately, a lot of subpar play where, it really kind of impacted it's impacted this offense to a great negative degree. And you'll see that across the National Football League. If you don't have an offensive line, you can't go out there and run an efficient offense. But the Giants feeling good here where they can make the trade and deal Azudu to the Chiefs and get a late round draft choice in 2028. The deal they made with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were dealing with some interior offensive line issues, as I think their starting guard underwent back surgery. So they were looking for an option there. So it tells you, to me, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, it would show to me that the Giants have a ton of confidence within the building of the depth within the room, that they could be able to pair guys off and be able to still withstand that, and the quality of the depth that they have should an injury, unfortunately. And we see it all across the National Football League. Nobody's wishing on injuries, but you see them all the time, right? And it's very, very unfortunate, but it's a very physical sport. But shows you the confidence level this Giants organization has of the offensive line depth within the room, correct?
Yeah, Coach Harbaugh has spoken about how much confidence they have in the depth earlier this week. And Brandon Brown reiterated that yesterday when he spoke to the media for one of the few times we get to hear from him all year. But yeah, it is very clear that both the coaching staff, the front office, feel very good about the offensive line. The 5 starters have kind of been, I'll say, at least penciled in for a few months now. Obviously the drafting of CC Mawinoa, throwing him in at right guard, the other 4 starters returning from last year. So the starting line has kind of been set, but the guys behind him have been somewhat fully up for grabs. We really didn't know how that was going to play out. Obviously, there were a few guys that going into training camp, we thought, there's a pretty good chance this guy's, the swing tackle, the backup guard, et cetera, et cetera. But all of those guys in the room have been legitimately have been playing well, where it is going to be a tough decision come Sunday, which guys end up making those final couple of roster spots, even after the 2 trades for Azudu and Falele. There's still decisions to be made,
no doubt,
because guys are playing so well.
And I think J.C. Davis showed something on Saturday.
Oh, for sure.
The ability to go out there. And I understand, and Coach Harbaugh made a point to emphasis that, Miami was playing their backups. They weren't playing a ton of starters. And the Giants obviously weren't playing a ton of starters either. But the point being is that they wanted to test him to see if he could hold up over the course of the entire game. It was something that I pointed out when I was doing the show with John postgame on radio on WFAN, is that you saw a lot from the rookie, late round pick coming out of Illinois. I thought he really acquitted himself really well, and the Giants wanted to see if he could hold up over the course of the entire game, and he clearly did.
Yeah, he played all 81 offensive snaps.
Yeah.
I believe 46 of which were pass blocking snaps. And according to Pro Football Focus, did not allow a single pressure, let alone
awesome.
Not a sack.
Yeah.
So he did everything you could possibly ask for him to do in that, extended action against the Dolphins, which granted, as you said, they were not playing their starters. And even if they were playing the starters,
Yeah, Miami's
the Dolphins,
not a particularly good football
They don't
team.
have the best roster. I will say the edge group in Miami, the starting edge group, is probably their best position other than Devon Achane.
Achane special.
But I don't even think any of their starting edge players really play, like Josh Uche and Top Robinson. I don't know if those guys really got in on Saturday. But yeah, J.C. Davis, he looked great. Marcus Bowe has, we saw what he could do last year. They clearly have confidence in him. Aaron Stinney played well against the Dolphins. All the guys that are competing for these handful of spots.
And I think there was one point where Stinney and Patrick walked the defensive tackle backward into the linebacker row. I mean, and on a successful running play. So, I mean, it shows you where you're excited if you're a Giant fan in terms of this offensive line. Matt, you mentioned before 5 to 7 positions. We're not going to speculate in terms of, who's making the team, who's not going to make the team. I'm going to ask you this question as far as what do you think those spots, what do you think the Giants as an organization are looking for? Like, are you looking for flexibility, like back into the wide receiver room to where you can help out on special teams, whether it be in coverage or whether it be in return? When you're looking at the defensive backfield, if you're battling for one of those last roster spots, what exactly are you looking for as you fit into Denard Wilson's defensive scheme? What exactly, and you can take it wherever you want to go, Matt, but what do you think the guys that are battling for their, I guess they're not NFL lives because they might land someplace else, should they be let go by the Giants based on what they show on film. But what do you think the Giants are looking for on Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to guess it's versatility. Obviously that has been something that it seems like the front office and coaching staff have been preaching all offseason based on some of the moves they made, both in free agency and the draft. But when it comes to the, last handful of spots on the roster, those are guys that, you can't just play one spot. Obviously there's 11 spots on offense, 11 on defense, all the different special teams units. You got to be able to help out in more than just one spot if you're going to be one of those last guys on the roster. So, whether it's a wide receiver vying for one of those final spots on the depth chart,
right?
You're probably going to be asked to play some special teams as well. Play gunner, play kick returner, etc. Same for the defensive backs. Those last guys, you got to be able to help out special teams especially. But if you could line up multiple spots on your respective unit, that I would think would help you go a long way in, securing a potential spot.
The other day on Tuesday, Odell Beckham Jr. made himself a beautiful one-handed catch in the back of the end zone, draw the oohs and the ahs from the media men and women that are covering the Giants. And he screamed and hollered, and the official that was there, that was taking part, put his hands up that it would have been a touchdown. He got both feet down. Where do you think Odell stands here going into the third and final preseason game, Matt? He has been obviously the history here within the organization. You hear it, I hear it. There are Giant fans that are openly rooting for Odell Beckham to make this team. There's been a number of injuries, unfortunately, when you look at Austin, who is going to be an asset for this team, and John Harbaugh has talked about the fact, suffered the season-ending injury the other day on Tuesday out on the practice field, and that was very unfortunate. You feel bad for the young man. You really do. For Odell Beckham Jr. here, it's a numbers game for sure. He's not going to be a guy that helps you out on special teams. What about Beckham here and what he has done to put his best foot forward and give him an opportunity to make this team when they cut down to 53?
Yeah, Lance and I were actually talking about this yesterday because, of course, Odell Beckham is going to be a popular storyline.
No doubt,
no
100%. When you think about the receiver room, you think about, honestly, Malachi Fields has been great. But you think about two guys are going to be the main conversation point: the health of Malik Neighbors and the knee, and if he's going to be available week one against the Dallas Cowboys, and if he is, what version of Malik Neighbors is he going to be? And then the other one, obviously, is going to be, the veteran Beckham, based on his history within the organization, the love affair that Giant fans have with the player.
Yeah, for sure. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, but when it comes to making the decision on which wide receivers make
Can he help
team, you got to take all of that sentiment completely out of the equation.
No doubt.
That can't have any, and I'm pretty confident it does not have any.
Oh, I don't think it does, but it's just the nature of the beast.
No, for sure.
I mean, it just, you see it, I see it, we all see it. I mean, and you know how popular the player is. But yes, can he help the football team is where is he physically? Can he still get separation? Can he help this offense out? What's the role? How does that role look? Is he going to be happy with that? Like all of that stuff. And I think you've seen a very mature version of Odell Beckham Jr. at this stage of his career, because I think he's just happy to have the opportunity, and he's put himself physically and to have the opportunity to be here in camp with the Giants.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, Coach Harbaugh spoke yesterday because I feel like he's been asked about Odell 2 or 3 times a week every week.
No doubt, 100%, yeah.
But he did say, look, Odell's had a good camp. And, this week especially has probably been Odell's best week of training camp. And again, he's looked good since, day one in West Virginia. And he's seemingly gotten a little bit better each and every week, which, you would think kind of crazy to say about a 33-year-old that's been in the league for so long, but he really has. I've been out of practice every day watching, and he gets separation. He, gets by defenders pretty easily. He made one move in Miami last week where he almost put a defender in like a pretzel because the guy got so confused.
Had him on skates.
He had him on skates. Literally, the guy just completely wiped out, and Odell was wide open for a catch. It wasn't a huge catch, but, in a game that could end up leading to a nice catch and run for the offense. So he's really looked good. He's looked, I think, more athletic than at least I was expecting the 33-year-old who hasn't played in almost 2 years to look. But he really has looked good. So I think it's going to come down to, this coaching staff, the front office, they're going to pick the best, however many number of wide receivers make it, 6, 7, 5, whatever it might be. They're going to pick the best guys, period. I don't think, it's been a big topic has been Coach Harbaugh saying it doesn't matter how you got here, the circumstances to which you arrived
Well, that's
here.
what you love.
It's all going to be about who are the best players to help this football team. So, whether or not Odell is one of the final guys to make the team, that's obviously, I think, a question that will be answered in a couple of days, but we'll have to wait and see.
We'll wait and see. And I think I'll say it this way, Matt, from, what I've seen here, from all the reporting, everything that you've seen, he's put himself in the best possible position at this stage of his career to make an NFL team. The question is, as it is always is a numbers game, the role that he would have for the team. Similar questions that we have. And, he, unfortunately, when you look at, the Austin injury, that has opened up another opportunity for somebody else. So, we'll see if that ends up being Odell Beckham Jr. You mentioned before in terms of Harbaugh, don't care where you've been, what the backstory is, it's all about the here and now. And you think about a couple, guys that have been, maligned as Giants and first-round draft choices. Let's talk about one, Tay Banks, because he's looked good at the cornerback spot. I don't think there's any question about it. And I do think the defense that Denard Wilson has put in place and installed here plays to his strengths here as a cornerback. But, it's been frustrating. He's gifted. He's talented. He can go out there and play the position. The question is the consistency to which he plays at that level. What about Tay Banks in terms of his role, where he is right now with the fresh start with John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I mean, look, Coach Harbaugh made it clear since day one that everyone's going to have a clean slate. So it doesn't matter what happened last year, 2 years ago. None of that matter. It's a whole new coaching staff, so much roster turnover from last year to this year. So, quite frankly, what happened in the past doesn't really have any effect.
Which is great, which is what you want.
100%. And with that in mind, Tay has looked very good.
Yeah, he's looked great.
He really has. He has, one of the big issues in previous years is, a big talking point has been getting his head around when the ball is in the air. He's gotten better at that over the last month. I've seen an improvement in that area specifically. He's gotten his hand on the football. It seems like every single practice, multiple times each practice, he's breaking up passes. He had, I think, back-to-back ones yesterday. He has looked good. He is, obviously vying and battling for one of those starting cornerback spots. There's a tough competition between him, Paulson Adebo, Greg Newsome, even Colton Hood. Those are 4 guys that are vying for a couple of starting spots. They've all had their moments. It hasn't been a perfect training camp for any of them. They've all had some ups and downs, but Tay in particular has really looked impressive. When Denard Wilson was hired, he's got this big, extensive background with the defensive backfield in his NFL career. And the hope from, people outside the building, and I'm sure inside the building, was that he would be able to get the best out of not only Tay, but all those young defensive backs. And so far, a lot of those guys look like they could, because it doesn't matter until the game's really
no doubt
in week 1. But a lot of the young The young DBs look like they could be primed to take a step in 2020.
Well, and they've responded to the coaching. I also think the style of play, too.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not a matter of, where at times when you looked at Tay Banks too, Matt, is that he got caught kind of in no man's land, where there was a little bit of confusion in that defensive secondary about whose role was who. And so I think they're looking to minimize that as well, because listen, the more that the game slows down when you have the ability to go out there and play fast. Now you might say, Mark, that makes little to no sense. What I mean by that is you don't want to have guys, regardless of sport, thinking too much, because when they think too much, then they're slowing down, right? It wants to be natural, right? What are we doing offensively? What are we doing defensively? Have an understanding. Let's go out there and do it, right? To where you're not overthinking the situation, because then that causes you to slow down as a player. I think there's been limited nature of that. Now, we'll see how it plays out during the course of the regular season, but Devontae Banks has been right there and has played really, really well throughout the course of training camp and has really kind of taken to that fresh start. The other one, Matt, I want to throw at you was a guy that a lot of Giant fans were up in arms at times that he was brought back, but I think it made sense because of the investment that they had made in the player, and I think he's still physically gifted enough to be able to play in the National Football League. We just have not seen the player that we saw down in Alabama. What about Evan Neal and what you've seen from Neal here? When you talk about that depth along the offensive line, the Giants have made a couple of trades here. What about what you've seen from Evan Neal?
Yeah, that's another guy that has, looked pretty good over the last month or so. And obviously,
has he looked better now than he has previous summers?
I would say so, yes. I mean, obviously, the first couple of years he was here, he was playing tackle. He's now shifted inside to guard, where, from what we have seen, it seems like maybe that might be where he's better suited to play. Obviously, the two trades that happened over the last 8 days were both two interior offensive linemen, Falele and then Azudu, who obviously has played at tackle in the past, but was playing at guard this summer, at least for the Giants. So both of those guys getting traded, I would say, obviously, help Evan Neal's chances. But again, we were just talking earlier about how good all those guys have been playing really in the offensive line room. So it's still going to be a very stiff competition, but it does look like
very fluid. But
he
you
has
think
taken
he
a bit of a step this year.
He's taken a little bit of a step or a big step?
A big step, I would say. I mean, he definitely looks better this summer and looks just more comfortable out there than I think maybe in previous years.
Beautiful.
But again, it's practice reps, it's preseason.
For sure.
At this stage, that's all we have to judge off of. I'm not making any statements about,
No, you're making an apples-to-apples comparison because you're talking about from training camps in the past, and obviously the adjustment going from outside to inside, tackle to guard. But clearly, when you look at it, the talent is there. He's a mountain of a young man. If you've ever been
big.
in...
Every time I see him, my jaw drops a little bit.
Yeah, he blocks...
How huge he is.
Yeah, he blocks the sun. I mean, I say that glowingly and kindly. I mean, he really does. He's that big of a human being. So you look at the talent, skill, and ability is there, and the job is to see if they can find that guy that was down at Alabama who was expected to be a dominant offensive lineman, if they can unearth him and a new coaching staff, new set of eyes. 201-939-4513, and that will be an interesting decision by this Giants organization after the final preseason game tomorrow night against the New York Jets, when the final 53 are cut down over the course of the weekend. Archive this show on our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, the Giants YouTube channel, and also at giants.com/podcast. Marc Malusis, Matt Citak with you, a Thursday edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. Let's head to the busy phones. Let's head up to beautiful Maine. It's Jeff. It's Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, Jeff?
Oh, hey, Matt, Mark.
How you doing?
So, good. I'd like to give 4 good reasons why we should go against the long-established norm and go for 2-point conversions instead of point-after attempts when a touchdown is scored. This is with the caveat that we end up having a better-than-average power running game, which I hope we do. So mathematically, there is almost exactly a 2-to-1 ratio of success for point-after attempts compared to 2-pointers, 95% to 47.5%.
Right.
This means that if you have an even slightly above average power running game, that in the long run you'll score more points, which is the whole idea of the game.
Right, so it's more of the advanced nature when you're looking at advanced analytics or analyzing the 2-point conversion. Similar in nature to where you see teams that are get over aggressive with the 2-point conversion. We've seen it at times with Los Angeles. We've seen it at times with Kansas City. We certainly saw it a number of years ago with the Los Angeles Chargers, to where you're going for more twos than you are kicking extra points. That's what you want, Jeff?
Yeah, so some teams are doing that, I guess some. But I think for the situation the Giants are in now, that there's other reasons too, like, for instance, establishing an identity. This would actually put an exclamation point on establishing an identity as a bully ball power running team. And, if we, just did it all the time. Some people might accuse us of running up points or something, but again, that's the whole idea is scoring points.
Well, I don't think it's going to. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. Well, and then the other thing is, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, which would increase your rate of success if you absolutely have to do it at the end of the game. And it could even make you get better at short yardage conversions in the middle of the field. And then finally, it's a more exciting play than the boring point after attempt. And this is, after all, an entertainment business.
Right, I get you. It's entertaining to win. Jeff, we appreciate the call, and thanks for it.
Thank you, Jeff.
As far as being over-aggressive, I don't like chasing points. You can go back to, I think it's more a case of teams getting accused, Matt, of run up the score. You see it more collegiately. Used to see it with Chip Kelly when he was at Oregon, Rich Rodriguez down in West Virginia, where they were taking on, teams that were clearly more talented then and going for twos throughout the course of the game and beating teams like a drum. I get the idea where you're saying, well, if you're looking at 2-point conversions and it's a 47.5 conversion rate, right? And we know the extra point has been pushed back, right? Convert basically 95% of the time. Well, if you're going to go and try and maximize the offense, maximize your opportunities, you're going to go for two more often than kick the extra point. I just don't look at it that way, Matt. Maybe you disagree. I don't like chasing points. I think there's a time and a place for going for 2-point conversions. I don't think you necessarily could go for it every single time that you could score a touchdown and think that that's necessarily going to work out. You could be a power running team in between the 20s. You could be a power running team. And I think about the identity of a running team more so a case of, I'm going to run it. I know I'm going to run it. It's 3rd and 3. Try and stop me. You're not going to be able to stop me, right? And that to me is more identifiable as a team that is a power running team as compared to a team that, okay, I'm going to line up at, the 2 and we're going to go for 2 every time we score a touchdown. I'm going to run the ball right down your throat. So I get it. It's more a modern way of looking at professional football. I think there are some coaches that have that kind of belief. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be identifiable with the Giants in 2026.
Yeah, I'll say this. The Giants, just like every other team across the NFL, have guys that are running the analytics for every possible situation you could think of. And if the analytics showed that, it would help your chances of winning and scoring more points if you went for 2 every single time, then I think every team across the league would do it. And there's a reason why most of the time teams do not go for 2. Sometimes, yes. Obviously, it depends on the circumstances, but yeah, I can't say that.
Similar,
it would definitely be more entertaining. I can agree with that part.
Well, yes, and listen, when the NFL doesn't have a problem with drawing fans. It's like, everybody loves professional football. So, whether they start going for 2 every single time or not, I get the idea of it being entertaining, but the NFL is entertaining regardless of what you decide to do. I just, I even get upset when coaches, decide to go for 2 like early in the second quarter when they're trying to chase points or they're looking to make it a 1-score game. There's so much time left in the game that, that extra point might come back to haunt you. And at times it has come back to haunt NFL teams. And just speaking generally here, not pointing out a game in particular, but I don't even like that nature. But I get the point. I think you see head coaches get more overly aggressive with the 2-point conversion collegiately than you do in the National Football League.
Yeah, I agree.
Average.
And I think it depends. If you score a touchdown and on the play there's a penalty like in between plays, so all of a sudden instead of the ball being put on the 2-yard line, it's the 1-yard line.
That's different.
Then I can understand that changes the equation because that literally is obviously half as far as you need to go. It's a lot easier to get 1 yard than 2 yards in the NFL. So situation like that, if you kick the extra point and the defense jumps off sides and then you can move it halfway, then I can understand maybe considering going for it. But I can't say that I agree with just every time you score a touchdown you go for it.
Let's head up to Cape Cod right now. They've got tremendous lobster rolls. They're beautiful, drawn butter. John is on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, John?
Yeah, good afternoon, Moose, Matt. How you guys doing today?
Doing well, John. How about yourself? Thanks for making the call.
Oh, quite welcome. It's always a pleasure. Listen, I want to give you my 2 cents on 3 things, and then I'd like your opinions on it. You've already touched on some of it. This morning, I was listening to a live podcast on two sports reporters who cover the Giants, and they were going on and on about not starting and playing any of the starters in the last preseason game. I totally disagree. I'll tell you why. I sat back and I said, what would Coach Parcells do? All of your veterans want contact before the season starts for real. And I think John Harbaugh is very Parcells-like. I think, and I would like to see the starters play the first quarter. Yeah, I understand the risk, like with Austin, but it's football. If these guys went down in the first quarter of the first game of the season, it's still a blow for the team. That's number one.
All right, number two.
Number two, regarding OBJ, they thought that both of them thought that he was on the bubble to be cut until Austin went down. That may or may not be true, but I ain't buying that either. I'll tell you why. He is a situational player now. Is he the same OBJ as when he was a Giant? Absolutely not. And I didn't get the benefit of watching full practices. But I'll tell you, the two preseason games I saw, this guy is still quick in short spaces. He still has great hands, and he's still very difficult to cover one-on-one. His downside has always been injuries, and so far, so good. There were games in the past 3 weeks where he was wide open and just didn't get the ball. A guy like that becomes a huge weapon for you when you're in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and especially inside the 10-yard line, where if you've got Malik Neighbors back and you put Odell in the slot and they can't double him, I don't think there's very many defensive backs in the league that can still cover that guy one-on-one.
Well,
the last point, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The last point is Evan Neal. I'm really pulling for this guy. It was obvious as a rookie that he didn't have quick enough feet to play tackle. But you know something? The Giants started out putting him behind the 8 ball because he was an All-American at Alabama at left tackle, and moved him to right tackle with the Giants. And for anybody that thinks that's easy, it's not. I don't think he would have made it at left tackle, don't get me wrong, but I think they found a place for him at guard, and the guy is a road grader in short goal situations and short 3rd and 1 situations, and I really hope they can find a place for him.
John,
That's
well,
it, guys. I'd like your opinion.
You got it.
Thanks,
and thanks for making the call here on this Thursday. Let's start with Neal. I just don't think he's a tackle in the NFL. You've seen a lot of guys in college football be able to play left tackle in college football, and then they're viewed by scouts and teams as being a right tackle in the National Football League. And so I understand everything's a little bit different, but they have the footwork to be able to kind of, with the coaching, obviously, to be able to play. You've seen Evan Neal here, and I think he's more comfortable playing to the strengths of where he is as a football player to be able to play on the inside. And not necessarily that he's going to be a starter, because he's not. The question is he going to be part of this 53-man roster when the Giants make those cuts over the course of the weekend, Matt? So for Neal here, I think there's a number of, I would say this, I think there's Giant fans, and we all love second chances. And Evan Neal, took the 1-year deal. The Giants brought him back. You're always going to gamble on talent. There's no doubt he's got the talent and ability. The question is, can they find consistency from him? It would be a great turnaround story here for Evan Neal down the road, not initially, but down the road if he ends up being an important offensive lineman for this organization, given the career arc that he's had up until this point in time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he's got a chance to make the team. I mean, that's all he could ask for given how, the last few years went. He was obviously brought back in the offseason, which seemed to surprise a lot of people outside of this building. But he's got a chance. Honestly, that's all he could ask for with the cut-down day in 3 days from now. I would assume that we'll see him out there on Friday, I would think. As long as he's healthy, I would assume that he's one of the guys that would probably be out there getting some playing time. But, we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I don't know if anything's been really determined as far as Odell is concerned. Matt and I just talked about him, as making this team. What's the role? John, you mentioned it. Well, he's going to be, a key figure in certain situations. I'll ask you right now, are you going to take Mooney off the field? What about if Isaiah Likely is a guy that, the Matt Nagy is lining up in the slot in certain situations? You're going to take Isaiah Likely off the field. We know when Neighbors is, what you've seen here from Malachi Fields. You throw in Darius Slayton as well. It becomes a numbers game in terms of what that role is for Odell Beckham Jr. Should he be part of the 53 when the rosters are trimmed down? And, that's not for Matt and I to decide, and it's up for great debate. But, that's really kind of it. Is he going to be happy with that role? And then how many looks is he getting per game, right? And all of those things. So, it's an interesting receiver room. We know the importance of a healthy Malik Neighbors week number 1. And then when you get to the playing time on Friday night, how do you rep? Belichick used to always talk about up in Foxborough, you can't be afraid of injuries. I think it's, you set up your camp in a certain way to see exactly what you would need from certain players week number 3 or preseason game number 3, Matt. And if Coach Harbaugh feels that there are starters that need reps tomorrow night and he decides to play them, so be it, right? So, that's really what it comes down to. I'm not going to come out here and tell you that, this is what the Giants need to do. He is the first-year head coach after 18 successful years down in Baltimore. He makes the decision tomorrow night that he wants to see certain starters play and get some game reps in. However long that would last, then so be it. And you can't go out there and operate and be afraid of injuries, regardless of what you saw the other day with Austin. And that was a non-contact injury, made a cut. Unfortunately, suffers the knee injury and is lost for the season. But you can't be afraid of injuries in the NFL.
No, you cannot. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to go ahead and try to tell the Super Bowl winning head coach
no doubt.
how to handle this third preseason
But it's interesting
game.
The way that he handled it the other day when he got asked multiple times as far as what you're going to do. And he succinctly and very smartly answered each and every one of those questions without giving anybody a hint of what the Giants are going to do.
Of course.
That's what you love about Harbaugh.
100%.
You really do. Smart, confident in his own skin. He'll go back and forth with the media, but is also not going to give you necessarily all the tidbits that you're looking for.
No, and he even said that to whatever the first question was in that series of questions about whether or not guys are going to play tomorrow night. He literally said, I'm going to tell you the same thing I've told you the last 2 weeks, that I'm not going to really tell you anything. That's what we've just come to, get used to from coach. And obviously with the preseason, that's how he wants to handle it. That's, obviously his prerogative. But yeah, look, it's going to come down to they're going to have to weigh the options of, the potential risk injury versus making sure, both guys on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball are firing on all cylinders heading into week 1. Because obviously tomorrow is the last game-like situation that the Giants are going to have prior to taking the field against the Cowboys Sunday Night Football week 1. So that's obviously what they are going to be weighing for the next however many, 20, 30 hours-ish.
Yeah.
And whether it's, worth the risk to get these guys that more work or not. I'm not going to sit here and say one way is better than the other because I'm not a Super Bowl winning head coach.
No, I get it.
So,
and listen, it's always up for debate and conjecture. And I think the most interesting thing is those 5 to 7 roster spots that might still be on the line, right? And you have guys that are entrenched. I think as an organization, you want to have some questions answered by tomorrow night when you leave that field against the New York Jets. Out to Phoenix, Arizona we go. It's Jay at Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, Jay?
Hey, guys. I hope you guys are doing well.
You too.
You're having this conversation about OBJ, and so I wanted to kind of give my 3 scenarios with him not making the team. Because in reality, let's be honest, if he's cut, who's picking him up? And if that's the case, we could easily put him on the practice squad. And his role at this point, if he doesn't contribute on special teams, is really to be insurance for Neighbors or Mooney or Slayton. So this is my thought. First scenario would be you keep 6 receivers, but you go out and you look for a young developmental wide receiver. Meaning on Sunday, the market is going to flood with good receivers, right? There's going to be cuts all over the league. Can one of those be better than
what you have?
Jr.?
Right.
And somebody who can contribute on special teams, either as a returner or a gunner. And then the other one would be, well, let's keep 5 receivers and view likely as a tight end and keep Fidone. Because it sounds like, likely Johnson, Manhurts are definites. Ricard, of course, is a fullback. But would Fidone make more sense in keeping him over an OBJ, who, again, you can slip onto the practice squad? The guy didn't play last year. The year before, he caught 9 catches. He's not getting picked up by other teams.
Yeah,
you can put him on a practice squad. So those are my points. Once you guys talk about it, I'll jump off.
Yeah, Jay, and that's where it comes down to, and yeah, we appreciate it. Roster construction. How many offensive linemen you keeping? How many tight ends are you keeping? How many wide receivers are you keeping? Who can you get through to be on that, practice squad? Who's going to get picked up by somebody else? These are all questions that you have to have and debate about and talk about. And I don't think you're necessarily wrong in the assertion that, if the Giants decided to let go Odell Beckham Jr., do I think there would be another team out there in the National Football League that would say, well, we got to have him? He's shown a little burst here. Physically in his early 30s, I think he has surprised people with how good he's looked here in camp. The hands are always there. That's why dropping the touchdown pass on Saturday against the Miami Dolphins was so surprising. But when he met with the media afterward, he said, listen, I was thinking about getting my feet down. I take full blame. That's a catch I make, 100 times out of 100. But those are the things you have to remember. Like, we value the player at this. If we decide to, but we don't necessarily have the value of that player on as a role for this team as presently constituted. If we decide to move on from that player, in all likelihood, we're going to lose that player. So maybe we need to hold on to that player in the here and now. Like, if we let go of this, do we have the opportunity to bring him back? Those are all conversations that are having, and that plays into the role, Matt, when you get into this 53-man roster when cutdowns happen over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. But first of all, I will say that I would not make any assumptions that a guy that gets let go is just not going to get picked up anywhere else, because all the reports about Odell Beckham from the media that have been covering every single practice here have been, they've been raving about him.
Sure.
And other teams, they'll take note of that. It's not like they're just ignoring all of the reports and stuff that's coming out of East Rutherford and West Virginia. So, I would not say it is guaranteed just if he doesn't make the 53-man roster that, throw him onto the practice squad as, the veteran exception. Like, there is definitely a chance that another team will take a chance on him.
For sure.
If he gets let go. So all I'm saying is just don't make the automatic assumption that if he gets let go, you can just throw him onto the practice squad.
Well, no, but
no one else will be interested.
Right, but I think the caller was. But you do know this: if there are players that and across the National Football League, that if you decide to move on from that player, he's gone. Like, somebody else will pick him up.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's fine. Like, but you have, whether it be depth or whether he got beat out or whether it comes down to a numbers game, you have too much quality at a certain position. You're going to deal from, as we've seen the Giants trade to offensive linemen, right? So they're dealing from their depth of their team in order to pick up future late round draft assets. And I think the caller, and that's fair to say that, if you're assuming it, but those are the conversations that you have within the organization of the chances of losing said player. What are the chances we lose player if we decide to move on from the player? And I'm not telling you with 100% certainty that Odell would not be picked up, but there are other guys on this team where if you decide to move on from them, obviously I'm talking about non-starters that would be gone, that would be picked up 100% certainty from another team.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with that. And the thing with Odell, because he's obviously such a longtime veteran, is that he would not be subject to waivers.
Right.
So he would just become a free agent immediately if that were the case, similar to many other guys that are vying for spots right now. It's if you have, I believe, more than 4 years of experience in the NFL, then you're not subject to waivers. So,
he'd be free and clear.
He'd be free and clear to sign wherever he wants. Maybe he would decide, I want to stick around and try to, end up making it here, or another team calls and says, hey, we want to sign you. I don't know if he's going to say no to that depending on the situation. So, yeah, all I was saying was that because the caller said, confidently that he would not get another chance. I'm just saying with how he's looked.
Yeah, it's fair.
The same reason why he's vying, potentially going to make the Giants, the same reason why another team might decide, you know what, let's give him a chance. So that
and the other
wanted to make that
of it,
1 point.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. The other aspect of it is that, just like the Giants, every other team will be combing the waiver wire, coving the wires to see who gets let go. And, even if a guy makes the team initially, he might not be on this team based on who you pick up to.
Yeah. So while I disagreed with one point from the caller, I did agree with another point in that I want to make it clear. I have not said this yet on today's show, but when the Giants announced the 53-man roster on Sunday, it is going to be plastered everywhere. The initial 53-man roster. It is not the final 53-man roster. As we see every year, the roster goes through so many changes. Even the roster that gets announced on Sunday evening, chances are within a couple of days, that will not be the roster anymore. There will be some sort of change or changes to it because we've seen it every year in previous years. So just because a guy, as you just said, a guy makes the team Sunday night does not for certainly mean that come week one against the Cowboys, that guy is going to be on the 53-man roster. There could be multiple guys brought in that are not currently on the team. Like, it all depends on the moves that are made by all the other teams across the NFL. So that's why this come Sunday night, the next following few days are very, very big and are very active for all the teams across the league.
We worked around that pretty well, right?
Yeah,
not bad. Len in Columbia, Maryland's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, Lenny? How you doing, man?
Hey, guys. Doing good. Can't wait for the Jets game. I'm one of those guys. I want to beat the Jets. Moose, I was in the Yale Bowl in 1970.
Wow.
For the first Jets-Giants preseason game. I thought it was simply going to be a one-year thing. The Jets were coming off their Super Bowl win, and they blew us out, Moose. You probably know that from history.
Well, I know I wasn't there, but yes.
Jets fans had a great day. I was miserable, and I found myself thinking I never want to be miserable again after playing the Jets. So I'm a guy, I want to win the game. I want to beat the Jets. Secondly, I think Odell Beckham is already on the Giants. He's made the initial 53. There's nothing that Odell needs to do on Friday night to make a case for himself. If Odell Beckham was not going to make the first 53, I believe the Giants would have released him midweek and given other teams up to 5 days to figure out whether or not they wanted to make a bid on Odell Beckham. He's made this team.
Well, Len,
he's on it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me say one more thing, and then you probably got other callers, so let me say one more thing here. One of the things I'm concerned about, I want to stay in division with this one. I want to stay interior offensive line on this point. Dallas, Kevin Clark and Keenan Williams inside. Philadelphia, Carter and Davis inside. Commanders, Kinlaw and Payne inside.
A little bit of a step back.
Giants counter with Schmitz and Runyon, not the best of run blockers. I'm a little concerned.
Well, Len, listen, there's no doubt, and you look at, and thanks a lot for the call. When you look at Kenny Clark, Quinn, and Williams, question is, with the new defensive coordinator down in Dallas, was the outside pass rush, and they've added a number of defensive players. Yeah, the strength of the Philadelphia Eagles has always been, their defensive line, and they've got two former Georgia Bulldogs that are really, really talented. As long as, when you look at Davis, as long as his weight is under control, and that's been obviously well documented down there in Philadelphia, when he's in really good shape, he's a dominant interior defensive lineman. Yeah, and you could look at John Michael Schmitz, who I think has gotten stronger at the center position. When you look at Runyon, there have been times where you've seen it on game film where the Giants starting center has gotten a little bit overpowered up front. I think it also comes down to the run, the run game, the style and fashion in which what you're asking for your offensive linemen to go out there and do. If you're able to stay ahead of the sticks, and what I mean by that is put yourself in situations where it's not obvious passing situations here, Matt, where it's third and short, where you have to respect the run game. You got to go out there and respect the pass game. But we'll see. I don't have the great fear, Len, that you do, Matt, and maybe you disagree. about the Giants' interior of the offensive line getting overpowered. There's no doubt when you look at the strength of the Cowboys' defense, when you look at the strength of the Eagles' defense, or for the most part, I mean, one of the defining points of Philadelphia's defense is those interior defensive linemen who are really, really special. A little bit of a step back down in Washington when you're looking at Kinlaw, who's been better in theory than reality over the course of his entire career, a former top draft choice by the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, looking at the interior defense line, especially in Philadelphia and Dallas, there's no doubt that those are some very talented players.
No doubt.
I've spoken
100%.
on the show about how I fully expect the Cowboys defense to take a very large step this season from definitely what we saw from last year, considering it was one of the worst defenses in the league. But that defensive front in Dallas and obviously in Philadelphia as well with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, those are very talented defensive interiors. However, for the Eagles, those two guys were there last year.
Yeah.
For the Cowboys, yes, Kenny Clark and Quinn Williams were there, but Kenny Clark was acquired right before the start of the season. Quinn Williams was acquired during the season. You don't really have a full offseason, a full training camp to learn the defense, get accustomed to the guys around you. So I do think those guys are going to take a step. But all that being said, the Giants are returning 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line. And the one new addition is a top 10 pick in CeCe Mauigoa at right guard, at one of those interior line positions that you mentioned. And so last year, Giants had one of their best rushing seasons in a very long time. They had a lot of success on the ground. So I guess I'm with you that I'm just not quite as concerned, especially because also John Runyan has looked very good this summer.
He has.
He has looked good. All the talk that was surrounding him in the offseason and then going into training camp, I think he's been consistently good at that left guard spot. And obviously JMS missed a little bit of time with the concussion he suffered earlier in camp, but he seems like he might have also taken a little bit of a step. And again, the offensive line as a unit is coming off the best season it's had in this organization in years. So I don't expect any sort of step back when you add a top 10 pick to join those other 4 guys who are all, have some level of proven success in the NFL.
All right, well, we got started a little late today, so we're going to go a couple minutes past. We got a couple quick calls we want to get through, a little 2-minute offense here. Mike in Virginia is up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, how you doing, gentlemen?
Good, Michael. What's on your mind, buddy?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm an OBJ fan, big OBJ fan, man.
Nice.
I honestly think that how old is he? He's 33, 34?
33.
33.
Okay, a 33-year-old Beckham, to me, from what I've seen, and this is, trying to not be biased, he gives us the savvy vet. He gives us better hands and better route running than Mooney and Calvin Austin. Unfortunately, Austin got hurt. No, he's not going to return kicks for us, but from what we've seen, right, in these games, right, he's getting past younger players. He's routing them up, getting on top. He's stacking. He's getting open. The ball just didn't get to him, so that's the lack of the opportunity. So I think in game-time situation, using him correctly, I think Beckham can be – I'm not going to – of course, he's 33. He's not going to be 23 Beckham. But Beckham can still be very effective. I think I don't know. I kind of like maybe they might not be throwing to him for a reason.
I don't know. And Mike, thanks a lot for the call. I want to get another caller in, but we've had a couple calls today. One thinks Beckham's not making the team, or 3. 2 think he's definitively going to make the team. I think there you could clearly see he could still play and play at a really high level from what we've seen here over the course of the training camp, and the hands are real, and they've always been real, Matt. So we'll see. And I think, not to put words in Mike's mouth, but similar in nature to what we talked about when we kicked off the program today, Matt, is that there are a lot of people that are openly rooting for Odell Beckham Jr. to make this team. And I get it at this stage of his career, a little bit of a clearly more mature, different guy now when you're around him than he was 9-10 years ago. And that happens with all of us, right? And I think he's excited about the opportunity with the Giants. I think he's taken advantage of that opportunity and put himself in a position to make this team. We'll see, in fact, if he does.
Yeah, when the Giants signed Odell back in very beginning of June and during spring practices, I don't think anyone questioned the fact that he still had good hands. I think the question was whether or not he still has that, ability to get by defenders, whether, that step that can just beat the guy covering him, play in and play out. And so far he's shown that definitely still has it. I mean, obviously you can't have the ball thrown to you every single time you run a route, but he seems to get open most times that he's running out there.
No doubt.
You know, obviously he doesn't get the ball every time, but even, and Coach mentioned this sometime this week, that, you know, they take note of all those routes that he's running where he's beating his defender that he doesn't get the ball. It's not like those don't count for anything, because there are some, if he were to make the team, there are circumstances in the game where he is going to get the ball on those plays. So he has been making defenders miss. He's been getting open, and, you know, even though he doesn't have a million catches throughout the summer, that counts for something for the coaching staff.
No question. One final call. San Jose, beautiful California. It's Michael. It's Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, Michael?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good, Michael. How are you, buddy?
Okay. One quick question. Great calls today. Paying attention to what you guys are saying. Question. Do we have the list at this point of who they're kind of counting in everybody on special teams? Right. In other words, they have 9 guys that are already penciled in, and assuming they're making the team. You understand what I'm saying? Do we know to hit the count at this point?
No. Okay. Matt did not hand me that list. Matt's got the list. I don't. I'm just joking. He doesn't have a list.
The reason why I'm asking, it may sound silly, but in my little head, it's like, okay, so Slayton doesn't do special teams, right?
No.
Moody's not on special teams. So when we say Beckham's not on special teams, okay. If you're a good wide receiver, the predicate of, well, it's got to be on special teams, I get it. If you're a good wide receiver, then that's not really the issue. So the issue is everything you guys brought up, right? The waivers, who are we going to lose, who can we get, what needs do we have, everything's in motion, all kinds of things that
very fluid.
Up my pay grade. But here's the point. The point is, if you take away 33, if you take away he's only played 38 games in the last 6 years, you look at Mooney, this may sound silly, 17 touchdowns. You look at Slayton, 21 touchdowns. You have Beckham, 57 touchdowns. And he tilts the field. And you win by scoring touchdowns. And can he score touchdowns the way he used to? No, but he scores touchdowns. You made a great point. He's got great hands. He tilts the field. He scores touchdowns if he can do some of the things. I think he's a better player than those guys, and I think he's playing better, and I think it's muscle memory. That's just my take. It may sound silly.
No.
I think he scored a lot of touchdowns.
You got it, Michael. We appreciate the call. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no question, Odell, as Matt mentioned, as callers have mentioned, the hands are still real, and they're fabulous. And he can go out there and make unbelievable catches, whether it be 2 hands or whether it be 1 hand. The question is, as Matt pointed out, when he was signed in June, is where was he physically at this stage? And I think he's answered a lot of those questions in a positive way throughout the course of training camp. Now it becomes a numbers game, what the role looks like. And realistically speaking is, how many receivers are you keeping? How many tight ends are you keeping? How many offensive linemen are you keeping? What does the 53-man roster look like? What does the 53-man roster then look like after the span of 48, 72, 96 hours? Because all of that, this is all kind of a fluid conversation, but Beckham, I'm sure he is, should be very proud of himself for the way that he's acquitted himself throughout the course of training camp.
Yeah, when he spoke, I believe it was towards the end of our time in West Virginia, he said that when he signed with the Giants, he said to himself, like, if I go out there and I give him my all and the Giants decide to cut me because I'm not good enough, I can live with that. What I can't live with is not, going out there and trying to accomplish my dream. And my dream is to play in the NFL. So he understands that. And you're right. I think he has done exactly that. He has done his absolute best and he has looked good. And he's put himself in a good position to potentially make the roster. But it is a numbers game. And there's a lot that goes into constructing a roster that's not just, he's looked good, he makes the team. It's Joe Shane has spoken about this year after year. It's like roster gymnastics, trying to put together all the different positions. Who's going to make it? Who's going to help out on special teams? Who's not? If you add a receiver here, you might have to take out a player in depth at another position. So it is a very complex, process to build that initial 53-man roster. But I do agree that I think he's done everything he's could to put his best foot forward. It's a numbers game. We're going to have to wait and see come Sunday night.
The Giants Foundation will host a 5K race and kids run presented by Quest on Sunday, November 8th at 9 a.m. Citak will be out there. MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt after the race. Stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at giants.com/5K. The Giants Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Make sure you go and subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-term interviews with Giants players, coaches, front office staff, past and present, plus hear from the best analysts covering Big Blue and the National Football League. Search for Giants Huddle and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or go to giants.com/podcast. And don't forget, if you're on an Apple podcast, leave a 5-star positive review. We all love. Do we not? Right? So leave a 5-star review for all of our Giants podcasts. Matt, final thought here. Tomorrow night, what should Giant fans, give me one storyline or one thing you're going to keep an eye on tomorrow night?
I am going to keep an eye on the wide receivers in general.
Wideouts in general?
Yes.
Okay. And you think right now, wide receivers, cornerback room, those are the two top storylines that you're keeping an eye on, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, we don't know starter-wise who's going to play. So
no clarity.
With the cornerback group, would be more interested in, who will end up winning those two starting spots, more so than, who might make the bottom of the depth chart at that position. But we don't know if the starters are going to play. So in general, the depth at those two positions will be something I will be keeping an eye on.
Matt, great
job.
What about you? I think the receiver room, to me, the Beckham story is so fascinating at this stage, and how well he's played throughout the course of training camp. I like guys that, like Tay Banks, that storyline, the cornerback room. And I think, when you look at the fact that the Giants have made 2 trades and trading away offensive linemen, want to see that room also tomorrow night too, because the Giants organizationally obviously dealing from a position of strength, and they feel like they've got enough in that room from a quality perspective to be able to withstand making 2 deals, one to Jacksonville and one to Kansas City. Side note, I learned something from Citak today. Now, we're all card collectors, right? In one way, shape, or form. And I don't know, but Citak is a huge card collector. I picked it up when he was younger, then picked it up a year ago. Yeah. I asked him what his, and now I've got a Griffey rookie is my most valuable card.
That's a great one.
My card basically minimized compared to Citak. I asked him what his most valuable card is. He's got a Jordan Wizards patch signed by MJ. I'm like,
it's actually a double patch.
Oh my God, I mean, it's amazing.
And I pulled it out of a box when I was a kid.
Are you serious? That is amazing. I mean, you learn something new about Citak when you do these shows. Johnny, Matt, great job across the way. You guys on the phones. Matt, always great doing the show with you.
Yeah, love it.
Blast.
Can't wait till the next time.
No doubt, 100%. Enjoy Jets and Giants tomorrow night, final preseason game number 3. Roster cut downs over the course of the weekend. No show tomorrow. Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll be back with you at Monday at high noon. Thanks for being with us each and every day. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. Coming to you from the Giants podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keeps getting better. The show, which is part of the Giants platforms everywhere, the Giants YouTube channel and giants.com/podcast. We thank you for being with us every single day. Have yourself a wonderful Thursday. Giants Jets tomorrow night, preseason game number 3. We'll talk to you again on Monday.